Up now.
Sin. Since.
Yeah, can see your
You're
screen.
seeing it now,
Yes,
right?
we can see.
Good. So this is actually where we stopped yesterday when we were talking about reproduction. We stopped in the reproduction in flowering plants, right?
Yes, sir.
So I told you as of yesterday that just like reproduction happens in normal plants and just the way it happens in human beings, that is the same way it happens in flowers because they are also living organisms that also give rise to to offsprings of same species. So I remember telling us that flowers can be defined as clusters of modified leaves. They can be defined as clusters of modified leaves with shortened stalk or stem. Now, looking at the structure of a flower as it is on my screen, now looking at the structure of a flower, and I told us yesterday that a flower consists of four various floral parts. The flower consists of four various floral parts. What we have on my screen now, the calyx, the corolla, the androecium, and the gyrasium, they are not just parts of the flower. They are floral parts of the flower. Floral. Floral. They are floral parts of the flower. And these are the four floral parts of the flower: the calyx, the corolla, the androecium, and the gyrasium. Hope you can still hear me clearly.
Yes, sir.
And you're seeing me and seeing my screen as well, right?
Yes, sir.
Good. So let's see what they do one after the other. Now, talking about the calyx as a floral part, this calyx is the part that consists of the sepal. The part that consists of the sepal. This is, I want you to pay attention to the diagram on my screen. You can see the sepal. These sepals are usually small and they're usually greenish in color. So this part of the flower that bears this sepal, that is what we call the calyx. The part of this flower that accommodates this sepal, that is what we call the calyx. It can be made up of 3 or 4 sepals or 2 sepals as the case may be. Just like you can see this flower, this is the calyx, and it has 2 sepals on the left and right end. Some can have 3 sepals, some can have 4 sepals. They can be in many clusters as possible. So that is the sepal. That is the calyx that bears the sepal. So that is for it. So we're talking about the corolla being another floral
I
part.
have a question, sir.
All right.
My question: what's the function of the sepals?
You say
What's the function of the sepal?
the function of the,
Sepals.
don't worry, we'll see that when we get to reproduction. It's all parts of a flowering plant. It's still part of a flowering plant that still performs various functions. It can perform functions. You can say that it can also perform a function where you're talking about distribution of nutrients. It can also perform minor functions when it comes to pollination. That is the reproduction in flowering plants. You get that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but you see that in details when we get to the reproduction proper. Talking about the corolla. Talking about the corolla. The corolla is known to be the part of the flower where the petals, the part of the flower where the petals, you know that the petals, the petals are the unique modified flower itself. Unique modified flower itself. Now, these petals, the corolla is more like the collection, a part of the flower that has to do with the collection of all the petals in the flower. You can just say that the corolla is a collective name for all the petals in a flower. You can also say that the corolla is the point where all petals join together. Just like you can see this flower now. These are a petal, these a petal, these a petal. You can see the path through which they sprout out. The togetherness of them or the collectiveness of them, that is what we call the corolla. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Good. Now, talking about the androecium. The androecium, it can be called androecium. You can see it as androecium. You can see it as androecia. You can see it as this androecium now is a singular form, and the androecia is a singular form. That is when there are more than one androecium. That it is androecia. So why I'm explaining this is for you not to come to your exam and see androecia and when you get confused. Get familiar with it, know that it's the same as androecium. So this androecium is basically the male reproductive organ of the flower. This androecium is the male reproductive organ of the flower. And the gymnasium is literally the opposite of the androecium, because the gymnasium is the female reproductive part of the flower. That is the ovules of the flower. Here you can find even the carpels and the elder parts that enables the female production, the female part or the female role of reproduction. So androecium is the male reproductive part of the flower, and gymnasium is the female reproductive part of the flower. So these now are the four floral parts of the flower. Every other part of a flower falls under these four major floral parts. You can just say that a flower is divided into four. These are the four divisions of a flower. Very many other parts follow suit in this. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yes,
sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
Now let's see how the flower does its reproduction properly. Let's see how it does its reproduction properly. And the reproduction in flower has to do with what we call pollination. Reproduction in flower has to do with what we call pollination. When we're talking about pollination, we are talking about the flower giving rise to offsprings of same species. Now, the definition of pollination is on my screen. Pollination is the transfer of mature pollen grain. Emphasis on mature. Transfer of mature pollen grain from the anther of one flower to the mature stigma of the same flower or another flower of same plant or closely related species of the plant. This pollen grain, assuming we are talking about living organisms now, this pollen grain is just like, you can remember when we talked about conjugation in Spirogyra and Paramecium, where we talked about them exchanging their nucleus in order to share similar traits that will be possessed by the offspring. Can you still remember when we talked about that? When we talked about conjugation in Spirogyra and Paramecium? Can someone still remember?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. So just the way it happens there, when it comes to that of plants, it's the pollen grain that they exchange or they transfer. So the transfer of mature pollen grain from the anther of one flower to the mature stigma of either the same flower or another flower of same plant Just know that pollination is the transfer of mature pollen grain from the anther to the stigma of a flower. This definition is just for you to understand that this transfer of pollen grain can be from the anther to the stigma of the same flower, or anther to the stigma of a different flower of the same plant, or anther to the stigma of another flower of a different plant or of same plant. And breaking the definition in details brings us to types of pollination, where we have the self-pollination and the cross-pollination. Remember, we said it can be from the same flower, or it can be of another, from the anther or to the stigma of same flower, or it can be anther to stigma of another flower. That is just what this definition now, that is what self-pollination and cross-pollination is directly talking about. So that leads us to two types of pollination, which is the self-pollination and the cross-pollination. Now let's talk about the self-pollination. This self-pollination has to do with the transfer of mature pollen grain from the anther to the stigma of the same flower. From the anther to the stigma of the same flower. That is what self-pollination is talking about. Looking at this image on my screen now, this is a flower, just like it was in the former image. This is a flower. You can see this is the anther of this flower, and this is the stigma of the flower. All these yellow protrusions seen here are the anthers of the flower. See the stigma of the flower protruding directly from the carpel. So the transfer of pollen grain inside this anther, they are grains that we call pollen grains in flowering plants. So the transfer of that grain from the anther to the stigma of this same flower, that is what we call self-pollination. When there is a transfer of pollen grain from the anther to the stigma of the same flower, there are automatically situations where there are droppings or droplets of these seeds or of these grains, resulting to the formation of new species, same species of this same flower from those pollen grains that are matured and transferred from the anther to the stigma, where they properly get fertilized, drop, and then mature. All happens on the same flower. Are we on the same page? Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Good. Now, when it comes to cross-pollination, it is still the transfer, it is still the transfer of these pollen grains from the anther to the stigma. But in this situation now, it is transferring from one plant to another plant. It is transferring from the anther of this plant, either from the anther of this plant to the stigma of this plant. You can see how my arrow went. This is one flowering plant. This is another flowering plant. They are both different. These are two flowers of same species. This is the anther of this flower. The pollen grain is transferred to the stigma of this flower, or this is the anther of this own flower. The pollen grain is being transferred to the stigma of this flower. Its fertilization takes place properly. There are droppings and they mature, and there are other offsprings of this same species.
Sir, please, I have a question.
All right. Let's hear you. Let's hear you.
Sir, please, I have a question.
Okay, let's have it.
What if a flower A and B are connected to one stem, and
Wow.
flower A
Okay,
and flower B flowers are connected to one stem.
okay.
Then the pollen of flower A anther transfers pollen grain from it to the stigma of flower B. Is that cross pollination?
Yes, it is cross pollination as long as it's happening between two flowers. As long as it's happening between, or the whole process is happening, or it's taking place in more than one flower at the same time, it is cross pollination, regardless of their position. They can be in the same stem. They can be in different stems. As long as it's two flowers, it's cross pollination.
Okay, sir.
Exactly.
Thank you, sir.
You're
Yes, sir.
welcome. Now we have some plants that undergo self-pollination. Please note down. Some plants that undergo self-pollination. We have our cotton plants, COTTON. We have our cotton plants. We have our tomato plants. We have our pea plants. That's PEA. Pea plants, tomato plants, and cotton plants. These are three plants that are known. There are others, but these are three major plants that are known to undergo self pollination. And plants that are known to undergo cross pollination are basically most flowers that you know, like the morning glory flower, the hibiscus flower. There is this flower that is being called Pride of Barbados.
Yes, sir.
Good. That flower is also a good example of a flower that undergoes cross pollination. Now, going further, this pollination does not happen automatically, neither do they happen spiritually. They are facilitators of this pollination. For this pollen grain to move from that of this plant to that of this plant is not a spiritual process. It is a process that is being facilitated by what we call agents of pollination, which is our next slide. Agents of pollination. When we are talking about agents of pollination, we are talking about we are literally talking about pollinators. We are talking about pollinators. So agents of pollination, they are those organisms or means by which these pollen grains are being transferred from the anther to the stigma of either same flower or different flowers. You can see the agents of this pollination listed on my screen. These are what we call pollinators. What are pollinators? They are those organisms that transfer pollen grains from the anther of one plant to from the anther of one flower to the stigma of the same flower or different flower. That are what we call pollinators. Did you get that? Did you get that?
No, sir. Come again, sir.
I said that the pollination happens as a result of the transfer of pollen grain from the anther to the stigma. And I said that they are facilitators there are agents that help to move these pollen grains from the anther of one flower to the stigma of either the same flower or a different flower. So those agents that move these pollen grains from the anther of one flower to the stigma of the same flower or different flower, they are what we call pollinators. They are what we call pollinators. And some examples of them are listed here on my screen. The insects, wind, water, other animals such as snails, birds, bats, man, and even insects like butterflies, bees, moths. They do this for fun.